In the previous video, we built the basic massing of the stirrup, the model of it. And the next thing we're going to do is kind of finish it off, really, is to put holes where they need to be going. If we look at our original drawing of the stirrup, see if I can pull it up real quick. Yeah, there we go. Okay, our original drawing of the stirrup, we have, bolt holes here to tie the post to the stirrup itself, and then additional bolt holes down here which would tie the stirrup to whatever it's sitting on, most likely concrete, but it could be wood or something like that. So anyway, let's put these bolt holes in and kind of finish this off, and you can get a feeling for what's involved in doing something, a simple family like this. So if we go back to the front, we can see, there's our basic stirrup there. If we go to, let's just go to the right side. Okay. On the right side of this, you'll see there's the right view, and if we notice here, there's two holes on this side, and so we're going to set those up first. And to do those, once again, we're going to use reference planes to create their location or identify where they're going to be located. So I'm going to put a reference plane in here and a reference plane in here, and we can name those if we wanted to, so they'd be easy to find, but I don't really see any necessary in doing that. The next thing we want to do is kind of dimension them as to where they would be located. I'm going to assume that they would always be located at a certain distance from the top and a certain distance from each other. So I'm just going to set that and not make that a parameter that can be changed. So I'm just going to put a dimension in here, and of course it's too big, so let's go to 3 to 1. There we go. And we're going to make this one 1 inch from the top. So I'm just going to type in 1 inch here, and then we'll put another dimension on, and we'll make this bolt hole that's going to be 2 inches from the other bolt. So once again, let's modify. We're going to select that, and we'll select 2 inches here. So now that's the center point of the bolt holes, and now all we have to do is put the bolt holes in. Let's move this out just a little bit. Okay. So to do that, first thing we're going to do is we're going to use a reference to create the location, and then build the void to that reference. And in this case, we're going to use what is called a reference line rather than a reference plane. Okay, that we're going to use to build the geometry around. So I'm going to click on reference line. Well, first probably we should go back and see what the work plane is set to. The work plane is set to the center line, okay, left and right center line. Just to remind you, let's go back here. The left and right center line is this line right here. So whatever I draw is going to appear on this, and that will work fine for us. So let's go back to the right side here and reference line, and we're going to go to a circle, and we're going to click right there, and I'm going to make this a 1/4 inch radius, which is a 1/2 inch circle, and I'm going to do the same thing here for this other one. Okay. And so now we have two reference circles that we can make geometry to. Let's go back here in the view, and you'll see they're kind of floating here out in the middle of space, but that's okay. That's not a problem. So let's go back to the right side, which is technically this side over here. So we're going to go back into the right view here, and create a void. So we're going to create. In this case, instead of something that's solid, we're going to create a void. So we're going to use this void form, and we're going to do it as a simple extrusion. It's just going to be an extruded cylinder. And then we're going to use a tool that is really useful. Instead of drawing the circle, which we could do that would make up the cylinder that would create the void, we can just pick a line or pick an existing. And since we already have this reference line here, we can just pick it as, okay, and then we can lock it to it. So if we change the reference line, then the size of the hole is going to change, and you'll see how that works in just a few minutes when I add a parameter to this. So we have the cylinder there. It's a void cylinder, and so we're going to say okay to that. And if we look, we're going to, into the view, it's super long, and what we want it to do is go from one side to the other side of the side plate here. So I'm going to go back over here to the front, okay, and just drag these controls and lock that to that side of the surface and lock this to the other side. Okay. And then if we go back into our view here, we can see we have a void now in that surface. So we're just going to do the other one real quick. So create a void extrusion, and through picking a line, and we're going to pick this line here, we're going to lock it to that, and then we're going to say okay, and we'll go back to front again, and we will now we could, when we drew it, set the actual depths, but I find this is just the simplest and most straightforward. And then if we go once again into our view one, we can see these holes here. Now to do the other ones, all you have to do is go to the left view. So I'm going to go ahead and finish it. So if we go to the left view and zoom in, of course we're seeing through, since this is a hidden, since this is not a hidden line view, it's a wireframe view, we're seeing the holes we made on the other side. But just to show you how to do this, we're going to create, once again, we're going to do a void extrusion, and we're going to pick, but this time we're going to have two things there. We're going to have the geometry that we drew on the other side, and then if I hit the tab key, you'll see there's the reference line. Okay, so there is one handle of the geometry, and there it then is, let's go, let's see here. That should be the reference line, and that's what we want, is that reference line. So we're going to pick the reference line, we're going to lock it, okay, and we're going to select, and then if we go back to the view, we're going to see that, right, so we're going to the front, and we'll grab this. Oh, we forgot to change our view, so I'm selected on this other side. I was selected on the right side, but I can just do this and then this. Make sure this is locked. Okay, and now let's go into the view, and you can see now I have a hole on the other side, on the left side. And so we want to do the same thing with this one again. We'll go to the left. This time I can make it draw it on that side by setting my work plane. If I wanted to, I could set my work plane to, I think I created the left, right? Reference plane left. And so that's what, when I draw, it will be on the left plane. And so once again, avoid extrusion. We're going to use the pick a line mode, and we're going to tab till we find the reference line, and then select that, end it, and then we can go back into our view here. Make sure we go to the front view, and we can resize this and this. We can, and And if we go to our view here, we can see we have 2 holes there. Here on the left, we have 2 balls. And so now we have our 2 holes for our bolts. I'm not going to get into how to model these bolt heads. Actually, there's some nested families you can download to actually add to it. I don't think that's critical or important at this point to just get the bracket developed. So the next thing is we've got these 4 holes down here, and so we're going to go to the top view or the reference view, okay? And what we want is a hole in each one of these quadrants, right? So once again, I'm going to come in here and create some reference planes. So I'm going to create me a reference plane from here to here, from there to there, from here to there, and from there to there. Now, what we want to do is make sure that this hole is in the center of that square. So to do that, what we're going to do is use our dimensions, and we're going to dimension this from here to there, right? And then we're going to make it equal. What is equal? Here is equal. And so that puts this line in the center between that line right there and that surface right there. Now, if we wanted it centered between here and here, then we should have moved the dimension over, okay? Probably that's where we want it, okay? So what I'm going to do is delete that dimension and go back and correct that in a sense. So equal, and then equal. And now it's centered in the opening of the space and not across the whole bracket. And the same thing we can do again here. So we want here, here, and here. Equal. And then we'll do the same thing on this side, right? So between here, here, and here. Equal. And between here, here, and here. Equal. Okay, so now we have the center point for each one of our bolt holes that are going down to the bottom. And so I'm going to put, I'm going to do exactly what I did before. The first thing I'm going to do is put a reference line in. So I'm going to create, okay. I can look to see where my reference lines are going to be put. They're going to be put on the reference level right now, which is at the very bottom of this. That might be in the way. So I think what I'm going to do actually is change this and make it the reference plane. That's the reference plane to the surface. There's the back. I really don't have one right there, do I? Okay, well, let's just use the reference level then. But you might find it visually confusing once we do this. So I'm going to come in, create a reference line, circle, center, quarter, center, quarter, center, quarter, and center, quarter. So now I have my reference lines. If I go into view, they won't show up there. We'd have to go into, well, they should. Oh yeah, that's right, it's underneath. I had to put this in wireframe for us to see them. Yeah, there they are right there. So So if we put it back on shade, we won't shaded view, we won't see it, or hidden line view, we won't see it because they're hidden. And so let's put in the voids. So we're going to go create. Let's go back to reference level here. And so we're going to create an extruded void. We'll do the same thing we did before. We'll pick, and we're just going to pick that line up there. We're going to lock it to it and say good. We're going to do the same thing again. Create void extrusion. Pick. We're going to pick that there. We're going to lock it to it. And then we can do the same thing again. Now, I only do this as 4 different holes if I want to control the holes independently. I could go ahead and just make them all in one time, but then they would be all tied together and one linked together. So it's kind of depending on what the end result is that you're trying to achieve, which way you want to approach it. And then we'll accept that, and then we'll go once again create, and we'll do the last one, void extrusion, pick, and we'll pick this line up there, lock it, and accept it. Now if we go to the front view, of course, we're going to see we got all these really long voids, okay? And so what we need to do is we're going to lose them. Let's see. So I'll have to find them. Just a second. Oh yeah. I'm going to tab here until I find this one, and then I'm going to drag it down, lock it to there, okay, and do the same thing to there. And then I can do the same thing here. Now if I'd drawn all these at one time, they would be tied together, and I could do this once, but this will give me more control. Once again, lock, whoops, lock, and lock, and then the last one right here, lock, and lock, oops, lock. Okay, so the holes are locked into place, and you can see them right down here. We can rotate it around, okay, and see our holes. So these are just our references. They will not show up. Reference lines and reference planes don't show up when you insert this into a model. So no problem there. And now it's really completed. The only thing is we might want to make it so these holes can change too. If we want to make the hole sizes for different bolt, having different bolt alternatives based on whether this is a 5.5 inch by 5.5 inch bracket or a 4.5 by 4.5 inch bracket. So what we could do is come back and put dimensions to the reference. This is the way that I would do it. I'd put a dimension to the reference. Can I do that from there? Probably not. I'm going to probably have to go to a right view or something. Okay, and diameter. Okay. I'm going to tab here till I get the reference line, and there we go. Now it's referenced, and I'll do the same thing here. Once again, hit tab till I got the reference line and reference that, and then we're going to make this a parameter. So we're going to call this new, we'll call it the bolt hole. Bolt hole. So now that's a parameter. We can set this to the same parameter. And of course now that's the diameter. Let's say we wanted this to be a 1/4 inch hole instead of a 1/2 inch hole. You'll see bolt hole right here. And so I could change this to a 1/4 inch. And apply it and say okay. And now all those are the, now I would have to separate them into different parameters. If I wanted bolt hole 1 or upper bolt hole and lower bolt hole, then I would have to do different parameters. But there would be really no reason why you'd want hole sizes different, I don't believe. And then I could do the exact same thing for these holes here. We just put dimensions on them. I'll just go ahead and do that real quick. Okay, so diameter. Once again, I have to use a tab key until I can find the reference line. Again, and then same thing here, tab, reference line. Okay, now you can use the, you can see that these dimensions are all in the way visually. You can hide them by turning on or turning them off. And so, but right now we'll just leave them there. With that done, then we'll just assign these the same. I could create a different parameter. Let's do that. We'll just create a different parameter. So I'm going to select this one, go in here and have, you know, base bolt hole. Base bolt hole. And so that becomes the base bolt hole. Select that. Base bolt hole. Base bolt hole. And base bolt hole. Now instead of a 1/2 inch, let's say we wanted those to be 3/8 inch. We could go in here, the base bolt hole, and instead of a 1/2 inch here, I could put 3/8. Apply it, say okay, and now if I go into my view, now these dimensions are going to show up, and once again it's hard to view it with them all showing up and everything. What you can do is go into the view, and so if this is getting in our way, if that text and those dimensions are getting in our type, I'll show you how to turn those off. Also, we could change the scale of that particular view so they're a little bit smaller, but still that doesn't really solve our problem that we have visually. And so the easiest way to do that is to go into view here and then go into visibility graphics. This is similar to the visibility graphics that you find in a project file. And I can go visibility graphics, then you'll see model categories. So I could turn off, this is a general generic models, but we want to be able to see it. If I didn't want to see hidden lines, I could uncheck that. What we're most interested in is dimensions here. So I'm going to uncheck dimensions. If we didn't want to see reference lines nor reference planes in that view, I could uncheck those. You can see levels were already unchecked. I'm going to apply that. So now in this view, none of those, the reference lines are gone, you know, and so that makes it much easier to see and control. It is view specific. So if I go to the front view, I still see my reference signs, I still see my dimensions and stuff like that. Once again, I could turn them all off if I wanted to, so that I could see more just the solid objects or whatever. But I really don't have any interest in doing that per se. And then So that's, you know, that's how to control the views of dimensions and stuff like that. You can make them smaller, of course, by looking at it at a much larger scale, or you can just turn them off as we did using view visibility graphics. Okay, so now our object is complete. We'll save it. File, save. And then I'm going to open up a new view, a new project view. So let's go in here, do a new project, just so I can Imperial architectural template. Okay. And then let's just create a surface, a floor surface real quick. Okay, basic architectural floor surface. We'll create it on level 1. We'll just use a rectangle. We'll draw it. That's a little big for our little 16 by 16. That should work. Boom. And if we go into back into our model, we can load it into the project. So we're going to load it into the project. Let's get a 3D view. No, oh, I don't have any 3D views. Default 3D view. Okay. So let's go to families. If we go down to generic models here, we'll see our stirrup bracket. Okay. And we can make different versions of the stirrup bracket, a 6-inch version, a 4-inch version, or whatever. Right now we're just gonna, okay. And you can see here, here's our bracket. So I'm just gonna place it on that surface. Okay. Since this is a surface here, I could place it on that, but it wouldn't make much sense because you're not gonna put a column out in that direction. But since this is because it's face based, so I can place it on any face that I want to. And so now we have our bracket. Okay, that's it. Hope you enjoyed it.